Okay, so we just spoke about some of the key features of internet startups. Let's talk next about technological trends and what kinds of trends are interesting. So we talked about the distant past of startups and the immediate past and present. And so what does the future look like? Taken as a whole, here's a useful list of technological trends. You can click each of these links. They'll take you to what I think of as interesting, kind of topical links. For example, if you click blogs, it will take you to how blogs beat the New York Times in a bet. And if you click some of the others, you'll be amused by some of them. For example, this one is about Apple changing their name from Apple Computer to just Apple because they're a mobile devices company. So I picked out these links. I think you'll find them interesting. And essentially, I've separated out the links into those that are happening or going to happen and those that have already happened. And there's various ways to cross-section this. I'm sure other people will have different frames on what's going on. But from my vantage point and from the vantage point of many people in the Valley, when I say the Valley, I mean Silicon Valley. So from my vantage point and the vantage point of many people in the Valley, these are really trends that are in favor of decentralization, mobility, and sort of the power of the individual. So, for example, machine translation, this reduces the importance of native language. This is going to be, in my opinion, one of the sleeper hits of this decade. Sort of like video chat crept up on us over the 2000s. It went from something that was considered futuristic and Back to the Future to something that became absolutely de rigueur. In the same way, I think that machine translation, especially once it's baked into cell phones and it's in solid state, and you can speak into a cell phone and then the person on the other end can hear your voice but speaking Chinese and then vice versa. That's going to further increase that globalization coefficient and make even more transactions that were previously infeasible feasible. So similar to that, other kinds of things here, for example, telepresence. This kind of thing means that you can now travel anywhere in the world. The physical location is much reduced, and that's going to get very good over the next few years. So all these things kind of are trends in favor of mobility and decentralization. And even things that have already happened, like for example, social network can be thought of in this fashion. One way of thinking about social networks is you calculate, what fraction of your friends on Facebook live outside of walking distance. The equivalent of your friend network in 1800, probably everybody, all your friends would have been within walking distance. And as you start going from the telegraph to the telephone to airplanes and whatnot, now for somebody like like a software engineer, often 70-80% of the people that they know on Facebook are outside of walking distance. And what that means is when they move, they're still friends. And so the penalty for moving and for mobility is now much less. And this is, I think, a very underappreciated aspect of, all of the social kinds of things over the last 10 years have made the, central importance of location much less central. You no longer fall out of touch with friends unless you choose to do so. You have to actively choose to do so. So this Facebook map is very interesting and kind of illustrates this concept of, mobility. If you look at it, the remarkable part is that you've got people over here who are connected to people in London, and in the 1800s, maybe that would have been a transatlantic steamer that would carry some letters every year or something like that. But now that's a real-time communication where this person can be texting their friend in London or Facebook messaging them more than they can the person next door. In fact, many of you probably know somebody across the world better than you do your next door neighbor. And we don't really think about how important that is. It basically means that physical location is becoming less and less important. What matters are the informational connections between people. That's a very important way to bet in terms of starting companies over the next 10, 15 years. And so, kind of related to the fact that many of your friends are outside of walking distance now, consider the proportion of your waking hours that you pass in front of a user programmable screen. So if you're a knowledge worker, you spend all this time in front of a laptop or an iPhone or an iPad, and then if you go out into the city and use an iPhone to find your way around, often that's another 10 or more hours. And the programmable screen, the mobile programmable screen, is only going to wax with new technologies like Google Glass or this Mind of the Future. And so what you have is this interesting confluence. Physical location and nationality are declining in importance, and software is increasing in importance as you get these ubiquitous programmable screens. And one of the things about this is that since 1648, there's been something called the Treaty of Westphalia that presumed that national governments are sovereign over all citizens within their physical borders. But that might not be actually, the case for the rest of the century. 20th century government was fundamentally a consequence of 20th century technology. 21st century government may be a consequence of 21st century technology. Um, you know, Put one way, today the physical world still has primacy and the virtual world is secondary. But tomorrow, will you find your community on one of these mobile programmable screens and then choose your physical location accordingly? To do something like that, that sounds really space age or internet age, but that would require mobile screens capable of basically doing everything in your life. A handheld that could do banking and shopping and communications, that could unlock doors and that could control machines. Unlock doors kind of like this, like with Lockatron, keyless entry with your phone, or control machines like this, an iPhone app that would start your car from virtually anywhere. This is where technology is going, right? This is exactly where it's headed. And that's why it's interesting to think about these philosophical questions, because that's what leads you in the direction of important startup ideas, not just let's share photos with my friend, but let's really do something big. Let's put a dent in the world. Okay, so let's talk about the next section. What is startup engineering?